Now, since the October 7th attacks, Jews around the world are increasingly under threat. France has witnessed a spike in anti-Semitic incidents. Around 470 anti-Semitic acts were recorded in 2022. This increased dramatically a year later to over 1,600. To talk more about this, we can bring in Simone Rodan Benzaquen, director of the American Jewish Committee. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us on the program. Now, Jews have been targeted and killed in France even before October 7th. Has the ongoing war made things worse?
Yes, you're absolutely right to specify that indeed the situation already before October 7th was terrible. Let's not forget that the first murder here took place in 23, and then 2006, etc., etc., and there were others following. Yes, but the situation has indeed become much worse. It is as if on October 7th, sort of the underlying anti-Semitism that was there and that was pretty much structural had exploded. On the very day of October 7th, and let's not forget that on October 8th, the Minister of Interior already instructed the police to protect Jewish community sites. It's because everybody knew. It's because everybody knew that when the attack happened there, that the Jewish community here is a target. So yes, since then the situation has gotten much worse.
So French authorities say they know there's a problem, they're aware there's a problem, they're trying to combat it. Are they doing enough?
They are right to say that they know it, but no, I don't think they are doing enough.
What should be done then?
The reality is, listen, I think it's a matter of priority. We have a lot of problems in our country. Right now we don't have a government. We had our fourth prime minister. But it depends where you place the priority. And I think for now, the issue of anti-Semitism, given the extent of the problem, is simply not yet a priority. So much more can be done in terms of tackling the issue of condemnations of justice, in tackling the issue of education, in tackling the issue of the new forms of anti-Semitism, meaning the issue of anti-Zionist anti-Semitism, the radical anti-Zionist anti-Semitism. Nothing is taught in school in that end. Young pupils do not understand anything about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, do not understand anything about history. It's not being taught. And so, in theory, much more could be done. But for it to be done, it needs to be a priority. And let me just say one more thing. It's also a question of means. The Interministerial Delegation for Anti-Semitism, Racism, Discrimination and Homophobia has a budget of 16 million euros. Is that a priority? So I think, yes, much more could be done. And while I have no doubt about the fact that the government is committed and that the president himself is committed, there is a discrepancy between the words and then the action.
Many French Jews say they feel isolated and abandoned by authorities since October 7th, based on what you're saying. President Emmanuel Macron didn't attend marches in the aftermath of the Hamas attacks to combat anti-Semitism. Some even consider leaving France and Europe in general. What do you say to them? That they should stay? Because on the flip side, you have a lot of Israelis who are leaving Israel.
Listen, I think, first of all, I think the one feeling that I've had since October 7th is that of the globalization of anti-Semitism and the sort of the globalization of nowhere to go. And I think that's a feeling many Jews have across the world. When I look at my friends in the United States, when I look at my friends in Italy, in Germany, in the UK, in France, everybody has the same feeling of insecurity and solitude. And you're right to say also in Israel. So I wouldn't advise anything to anyone. I already have difficulties in advising myself. But it's difficult to say. I mean, there is a huge feeling of solitude. The behavior of French Jews has just simply changed.
What do you mean?
People change their names on WhatsApp. People take off any Jewish symbols. You go to a school, Jewish school, there is security. If you don't go to a Jewish school and you decide to put your kids into non-Jewish school, there is a danger. So families will tell their kids, don't say that you're Jewish in school. So many Jews have a feeling that they don't live exactly the same reality as the rest of the society. And I think that is truly problematic.
I want to ask you, you of course live here in France. You've seen what has happened over the past couple of years. We have essentially a weaponization of anti-Jewish hatred. We have suddenly political parties here in France, from the far right, for instance, who have become defenders of Jews when they themselves have histories from, the neo-Nazis essentially founded them. What do you make of the shift which we are seeing from Jews who are suddenly attracted to these parties? But also on the flip side, we have the fear of the far left with Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
So a couple of things. First of all, French Jews are like most French people. When you look at opinion polls these days, the National Rally polls between 30 to 35%. French Jews are no exception. From what I understand, the numbers amongst French Jews is still below. But of course, some are attracted because right now, when you look at the political spectrum, the only ones who are at least pretending to...
But how could they forget? How can they just be willing to overlook,
You're absolutely right. But nevertheless, the only ones who are pretending that they have changed, the only ones who are pretending that they are defending the Jews is the National Rally. The problem for me is not the National Rally. The problem is the rest of the parties. Why don't the rest of the parties consider that it's necessary and it is a priority to deal with the issue of anti-Semitism? If they were, the National Rally wouldn't have to. So that's one thing. The other thing is the responsibility of the far left. By making the issue of Gaza the number one political topic, they are...
But they're just doing it to politically score points. Yeah.
Of course, but it has consequences. Yeah. And it has consequences of people's lives. And so the fact that now that the only real opposition to that discourse is the far right, well, it throws some of the people within the Jewish community in their hands.
You spoke about anti-Zionism.
Yes.
I want to talk about that because we have seen a war that has gone on after the October 7th attacks for 2 years now. We hopefully have a deal on the table that can bring the suffering to an end. Yet when we have international leaders that are critical of Israel's handling of the war, they are brandished by Israeli authorities as anti-Semites. Isn't this counterproductive to the global fight on anti-Semitism?
I think it's absolutely legitimate to criticize the Israeli government, like any government in the world, for the way they do the war, for the way they do politics. There are, a number of disagreements. The question is when the line is being crossed and when there is a criminalization, a demonization of the state of Israel. And I think this is where some of and by the way, it's not easy to always recognize when the line is being crossed. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but also we see that we have, whether it's the United States, whether it's in the United Kingdom, we have women in their 60s and 70s being taken off the street and arrested for holding a placard saying "Stop the Genocide." It seems a bit ridiculous sometimes that free speech is being stifled in this way. Even you get what I mean? It's a bit. Where do we draw the line, essentially?
Well, I think when you have a demonstration on the day the Manchester attack in the synagogue happened. In Manchester, in front of Downing Street, where people shout "Globalise the Intifada," I think that's a problem. I agree that free speech shouldn't be stifled, that people should be able to criticize the Israeli government. But unfortunately, you're speaking about the UK, for many, many, many months, particularly since October 7th. Let's not forget that the first demonstrations in the United Kingdom started on October 7th in London, where people were shouting and saying "Globalize the Intifada." This is where the line is being crossed. So I'm perfectly fine with people criticizing the Israeli government for their actions. I'm perfectly fine with people considering that there is a problem in Gaza. But what I have a problem with is when people say "Globalize the Intifada," when people say "from the river to the sea." That's, I think, when the free speech is being crossed into hate speech.
Simone, we can keep talking, but unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us on the program today.
Thank you.